are all come from outside. But these people who have come, these people who have come is actually these people are original inhabitants of India. They are the aborigines of India. Aborigine means they are the original people of India. That is why it is often said that Adivasi. The meaning of Adi is ancient. Vasi means people who live, settlers. In 1895, a man named Birsa was seen roaming the forests and villages of Chota Nagpur in Bihar. I have been brought up in Odisha as well as in Bihar. That time it was Bihar, now it is Jharkhand. I did my schooling in Ranchi. So I have come in contact with these people who belong to Birsa Munda's tribe. I have been to Birsa Munda's village also, a few kilometers from Ranchi. And people say, I have seen Birsa Munda's family also, which is there still exists, of course, many years back. So Birsa Munda was a very, very brave leader. He was a great freedom fighter. And you won't believe these Adivasis of the tribal people of Jharkhand, that is Chota Nagpur Plateau. That plateau is known as Chota Nagpur. It is full of coals and other things, minerals, iron. That plateau is full of waterfalls and natural beauty. And the water is very sweet over there. Moreover, the vegetation, flora and fauna is wonderful. You have places like Ranchi, you have places like Jamshedpur, you have places like Netarhat, Hazaribagh, Daltonganj, which are lovely places. And the Britishers, they built their settlements over there. So this person, Birsa Munda, he is from the Munda tribe. There are many tribes in Chota Nagpur and India, like the Santas, the Mundas, the Murmus, the Kispotas, the Lakras. So there are many tribes, the Horos, in that area. He could, people said he had miraculous powers. He could cure all diseases and multiply grain. So he was a very, very intelligent person. He could detect what I could understand from the conversation of the people in, they pray, they worship Birsa Munda as a avatar. But actually, Birsa Munda was a very intelligent person, and he knew he had very good idea of the tribal medicines. The tribal plants and medicines. They actually, if you know, there are some tribal medicines are there. If you take those medicines, suppose we are having arthritis, and that means joint pains. If you apply those oil, tribal oil, it's extracted from plants in the joints. Within 24 hours, you will feel there is no need of taking any painkiller. So it was miraculous. So he had tremendous idea of that. Secondly, he was a very good warrior. And thirdly, he was a very good farmer. So these 3-4 qualities he had, which actually attributed to his good qualities. Are you able to understand? आप लोग समझ रहे हो क्या बोल रहा हूँ? वो अच्छा उसका अच्छा knowledge भी था plants के ऊपर. He was a very good person in ethnobotany. He had tremendous knowledge in this agriculture, and because he was a good farmer, and he was a good warrior. Birsa himself declared that God had appointed him to save his people from trouble, free from their slavery of the Dikus, the outsiders. They used to call the English people the Dikus, the foreigners. So, he was born in a time when there was tremendous oppression. There was tremendous torture done by the Britishers on the Indians and especially the tribal people. So, he said that I am with the special powers. I've been gifted with special powers to fight the Dikus. So people, they just believe if their son is dying or the snake has bitten, they would carry to Birsa Munda. Birsa Munda is to cure him. If anybody is having any problem, he used to solve that problem. Any village is having any problem, he used to go and he used to get it resolved. So all these things, qualities he had he was a very good leader. Soon thousands began following Birsa, believing that he was Bhagwan. Everybody could see that there is some quality, and they believed it is a miraculous quality he had, and had come to solve all their problems. He is a sort of avatar for them. So Birsa Munda was known as an avatar. So I'm forgetting what name they used to call a particular guru or something he used to call him. That means he's something of a higher leader. He's a Bhagwan for them. Birsa was born in a family of Mundas. Mundas are a tribe which are present in Bengal, Bihar, Odisha, Chhattisgarh, and Madhya Pradesh. So this entire area Mundas are present. A tribal group that lived in Chotanagpur. But his followers included other tribals of the region, Santals and Orans. I had named to you about the Santals and the Orans just now. So the Orans, the Santals, they are from a different tribal group. Now these tribal groups had different cultures altogether. They had different origin, they had different language also. But they all paid respect to the Birsa Munda because they saw him as a liberator. They saw him as a liberator who can एक ऐसे इंसान जो उनको ये सारे जो तकलीफों से उनको उद्धार कर सकते हैं. All of them in different ways were unhappy with the changes they were experiencing and the problems they are facing under the British rule. British rule के दरमियान उनको काफी problems दिक्कतें पेश हो रही थी. जैसे ब्रिटिश कुछ ऐसे लॉज लगाया था फॉरेस्ट के ऊपर कि फॉरेस्ट के जो प्रोडक्ट्स है उसके ऊपर उनका कोई राइट्स नहीं है. हालांकि सबसे पहले फॉरेस्ट के ऊपर जो प्रोडक्ट्स के ऊपर राइट्स ये ट्राइबल्स लोगों को होना चाहिए. Because they belong to the jungle. They are not coming to villages or they are not coming to the towns. They are staying in their own forest. So the forest is their main resource. So if the tries the honey, the fruits, the animals, they kill and eat. So the forest food, they are all there, they have rights on that. All of them in different way were unhappy with the changes in they were experiencing and the problems they were facing under the British rule. Their familiar ways of life seemed to be disappearing, their livelihoods, and they were under great threat. And their religion appeared to be in danger. So you know what happened when Birsa Munda was alive. So he saw that the most of the tribes across that particular belt, that is 24 Parganas, that is Santal Pargana, 24 Pargana, Santal Pargana, Purulia, Ranchi, Hazaribagh, Daltonganj, and that entire area of Jharkhand and Chotanagpur Plateau, which extended till the western part of Bengal, was actually, we call it as a red soil, Bengal, Rangamati. So that particular area, because it is rich in iron ore deposits. So he saw that there was tremendous oppression and there was tremendous torture, and the people were forced to do away with many of them. उनको अपना जो ट्रेडिशन है, कल्चर है, वो सब छोड़ना पड़ा. अच्छा, इनको अपना ट्रेडिशन और कल्चर बहुत प्यारा. अभी आपको और मेरे को अगर कल बोलेंगे कोई गवर्नमेंट आके बाहर के चाइना का गवर्नमेंट मान लो आ गया फॉर एग्जांपल, और वो बोले कि आपको गणपति और दशहरा नहीं करने देंगे, तो हमको गुस्सा आएगा. उसी तरह से इनका भी जो था, ये भी अपने अपने जो है मूवमेंट्स पे लग गए. और ये अपना अभी क्या होता है, क्रिश्चियंस के क्या होते थे, ये जो यूरोपियंस लोग आए थे, ये लोग क्रिश्चियन मिशनरीज को ये ट्राइबल्स को एजुकेट करने के लिए भेजे. तो देयर मेन एम वाज टू कन्वर्ट दिस Adivasis, these tribals into Christians, and believe me, 50% or you can say 60% of the tribals converted into their religion. That was one of the problems. Yes, Khushi, tell me. You raised your hand.
Sir, about that Birsa Munda, was his supernatural real or he was acting?
See, the question doesn't arise here whether he is many years back. So almost 200 years back. So the question of whether he was supernatural or not is not the main question here. What do you mean by supernatural? We say many things are supernatural. अगर मैं बोलूँगा कि एक दिन मैं रात में सोया हुआ था इलाहाबाद के किसी होटल में और मुझे ग्लास में किसी इंसान का साया दिखा और लगा कि रूम के अंदर कोई चल रहा है, तो would you consider that to be supernatural?
No, sir.
Why not? अगर आप रूम में लॉक करके सोए और लगता है कोई नहीं है लेकिन आपका टेबल हिल रहा है,
Yes,
आपका
sir.
कुछ हिल रहा है, तो वो सुपरनेचुरल है कि नहीं?
Yes, sir. है.
देखो सुपरनेचुरल वैसे डिफाइन करना बहुत मुश्किल है. हम लोग जो बोलते हैं शिरडी साई बाबा को हम मानते हैं बिकॉज ही इज अ सुपरनेचुरल पावर एंड दैट वाज प्रूवन. रामकृष्ण परमहंस हो गए, ही वाज अ सुपरनेचुरल पावर. तो ये सारे जो लोग हैं इनके पास कुछ पावर्स थे. I'm not arguing, but as far as Birsa Munda is concerned, he was more of a, you can say, a very intelligent person. I told you, who was a very good farmer. He had very good knowledge about medicines, tribal medicines, and he was a very good soldier. So these three qualities of Birsa Munda actually converted him to an hero. He also almost became a supernatural hero, something like a Shaktiman. So, if if Britishers came and tried to torture anybody in the village, he used to go and beat those officials up. So he was a sort of, you can say, a sort of, a sort of rescue, a sort of Dharmender, who used to come and into the scene when the people are harassed and start banging them right and left. So, he is a sort of, heroic character. So the question of supernaturality, whether it was there or not, that I won't be the right person to answer. I have been to his village many years back when I was in school. I have been to his village and we also saw from distance their family members. There were some guides who also told us how they are and what they do and all those things. And they told that Birsa Munda was a very great leader and all these things. And he was almost considered as a god, as a superhero. But whether it was a supernatural or not, that we cannot say. We cannot say. By the way, the Ranchi airport's name is Birsa Munda Airport. So he's the main hero, like in Maharashtra, the main martyr and the main hero is Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. So everybody takes pride on it. Not only for Maharashtra, that is for entire India also. But for the Maharashtrian people, it's a real pride. Similarly, like for Bengal, it is Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. So the Damdam airport has been named as Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose Airport. Similarly, for the Jharkhand, the people of southern Bihar, this Birsa Munda happened to be the greatest hero, and so the airport is named after him. Even the stadium, Jharkhand Stadium, Ranchi Stadium, where international games are being played, that stadium is also known as the Birsa Munda Stadium. Okay. Now, their familiar ways of life seem to be disappearing because their life was not getting, and they were also afraid of their religious traditions. Their religion were also, there are many religious gods also they had, apart from the Hindu gods they prayed. What problems did Birsa set out to resolve? Who were the outsiders being referred to as the Dikus? And how did they enslave the people of the region? These are the important questions. What was happening to the tribal people under the British? How did their lives change? These are some of the important questions we will read in this chapter. You have read about the tribal societies last year. Most tribes had customs and rituals that were very different from those laid down by the Brahmins. Now, the Brahmins, as far as the caste society of India is concerned, it all started somewhere after the later after the Rig Vedic period, that is the early Vedic period. From the later from the Rig Vedic period, what happened? This, and after later Vedic period, there was caste system. Now, when this caste system was introduced, the people who learned Vedas, they did not want to transmit it to anybody else, but they formed a caste system which is known as the Brahmanas. Then a warrior class was born, which is known as the Kshatriyas. A business class was born, which is known as the Vaishyas. And there was a class which is do all odd jobs, cleaning and all this stuff, manufacturing of shoes and all these things they used to do. So their leather products. So they were known as the Shudras. But initially, in the Rig Veda period, it was not necessary that the priest's son, a Brahmin son, will become a Brahmin, or a Kshatriya son will become a Kshatriya. It was according to the ability. But that thing totally disappeared after the Rig Vedic period, because we see Vishwamitra. Vishwamitra was actually a Kshatriya, but he became a Brahma Rishi. That means he became a super Brahmin. And that he did through his tapasya. He challenged Vashishta and he became a super Rishi. That is he is known as Maharshi, Brahma Rishi. Brahma Rishi, he is called Vishwamitra. So you see, so that thing was there. Anyways, coming back to the topic, these Brahmins used to follow a thing which is known as the Manusmriti, which is still followed. The Hindu laws are only according to the Manusmriti. Now, the Manusmriti is an actual accumulation of the Aryan thoughts. Now, Aryans are the not original inhabitants of India, because the swastika that we see here and the swastika of the German, they are saying that means we have a European blood also within us. So we were very many thousands and thousands years back, many Aryans came to India and they settled. But the original people of this land, who were the aborigines of this land, the Adivasis, the people living in the jungles, they had their own traditions and customs. These societies also did not have a sharp social divisions that were characteristics of caste societies. And among Adivasis, though they had their own priests, they had their own set of gods, and they had their own priests. But those priests, they were not as Brahmanas and are here, or they also did not have the caste system within their society. Their society was very, different from the Hindu society, from the Sanatan Dharma. All those who belonged to the same tribe thought of themselves as sharing the common ties of kinship. So they all thought that we are a big family. These Adivasis, these Santas, these Mundas, the Orangs, the Horas, the Kispotas, the Lakras, they considered themselves that they are nothing, but they are belonging to the same. They are all interrelated to each other. That is true also. However, this does not mean that there were no social and economic differences within the tribes. But yet, there were some differences, some social differences, some economic differences were there. Like some tribals may be well off, some tribals were little well off. So those things were there. There were tribal chiefs were there. Okay, so that was there. How did the tribal groups live? By the 19th century, tribal people in different parts of India were involved in a variety of activities. So they were into a number of activities in which they were there, the tribal people. Some were jhum cultivators. Now, when I tell about jhum cultivators, jhum is, a cultivation which is a shifting cultivation. You have read about shifting cultivation, might be in your previous classes or in the present class. With the agriculture, it is known as podo farming. That means they do farming at a place for some period of time. They burn after a particular period. They burn off the land after the harvest is being cut, they burn off the land. And after burning the land, they go to another place. So they were a sort of nomads. They were a sort of nomads. Some of them practiced jhum cultivation, that is shifting cultivation. This was done on small patches of land, very small patches of land, very small patches of land where it was done, mostly in forests. And these were done in the forests. So they used to clear a forest area, cut down the trees, they used to clean a forest area. And in that forest area, that patch of land, they used to grow whatever crops, maybe rice and whatever. Mostly rice was the main food, staple food. Okay, the cultivators cut the treetops to allow sunlight to reach the ground and burn the vegetation on the land to clear it for cultivation. So they cleared it for cultivation. They spread the ash from the firing, which contained potash to fertilize the soil. That ash, वो जला हुआ राख जो है, जिस वो वेजिटेशंस का जो जला हुआ राख है, इसको वो लोग यूज करते थे as fertilizers. It contained potash, which was very nutritious for the plants, and the plants grew very well. They used to axe to cut the trees and the hoe to scratch the soil in order to prepare it for cultivation. So they used to, cut the trees. They used to use the hoe, that is the long comb-like structure they used to use to clear the jungle. They broadcast means spread, sow the seeds, I broadcast the seeds, that is scattered the seeds on the field instead of plowing the land. They never plowed the land. Okay. And sowing the seeds. Once the crop was ready and harvested, they moved to another field. After some time, after it was harvested, they used to move into the another field. A field that had been cultivated once was left fallow. Fallow means it was left uncultivated for some time. So that was a very scientific practice, because once you start cultivation, after one harvest, the fertility of the soil decreases by little. But if you leave that soil for some time, for not harvesting, for not using it for farming, for 1 or 2 years, then after some time it will again regain the fertility. So they used to move somewhere else. Okay, shifting cultivators were found in the hilly and forested tracts of northeast and central India. Mostly they were found along the northeast states like Nagaland, Mizoram, Manipur, Assam, Tripura, all this belt, you could find all this Meghalaya, you could find these people and this cultivation. And also it was very common with the central India, that is Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh. The lives of these tribals depended on the free movement within the forest and on being able to use the lands and forests for growing their crops. So they were free people, they were not worried about anything. They just did as they wished for. Like a family, they used to go together, they used to cultivate one land and they used to distribute it among themselves. Then they used to go to another place and there they used to do the cultivation. So they were free to move in any part of the forest. That is the only way they could practice the shifting cultivation. So for the shifting cultivation, this jhum cultivation, this was the only way. Shifting, that means they kept on shifting from one land to the other. Is it clear? Any doubt?
No doubt, sir. No doubt.
Some were hunters and gatherers. Now, all were not agriculturists. All were not farmers. Some of them were hunters and gatherers. Hunters and gatherers means they used to hunt deer, they used to hunt different animals, wild boar, and they used to kill them and they used to eat them up. They used to kill many birds. So, and they were gatherers, fruits, vegetables, and leaves and oats. They used to collect because they need to cook them. For cooking, they need the fuel, that is the wood. They saw forest as essential for survival. So forest was Their main source. That is why they worship the forest also. They always had a Bandevi. Every tribal in India has a Bandevi. That means a goddess of the forest, who actually blesses them with the resources, and she supports them in all times. The Khons, that from the Khons actually, uh, district came up in Odisha, and that district is known as Kandamala district. That we in English we say Kandmal, but actually it's Kandamala. And the very famous is there the turmeric. It is believed that turmeric in India, turmeric is an Indian spice. Turmeric, that haldi, in India started from Kandamala district in India, many thousands of years back. So the Khons were the community living in the forest of Odisha. There, they regularly went on collective hunting and then divided the meat amongst themselves. Suppose they killed a wild boar or a deer. So they used to, one of them used to hunt it, and then they used to, usually whatever meat they used to get, they used to distribute it among different families. They ate fruits and roots collected from the forest and cooked food with the oil they extracted from the seeds of sal and mahua. Now, sal and mahua happens to be two most very, uh, you know, famous and very resourceful trees for the people living in eastern coast of India, eastern part of India. That is Bengal, Bihar, Odisha, Assam. आपको कुछ साल के पत्ते के बारे में बताता हूँ. जैसे यहाँ पे you get teak. There you get the sal. So most of the furnitures are made of salu. Here most of the furnitures are made of teak. Here you get, you can make plates and cups with the help of the sal leaves. There also sal patta is dried, and there all these things are made. And even in Calcutta, you will find people are serving hot kachoris and samosas and jalebis all in sal ke patte, and that adds a special flavor. So that sal is a very, very important reaction. Sal also contains the seed from which the butter is extracted. So there is a creamy sort of fatty oil. Fatty oil is there, fatty acid, rather I should say. A fatty acid is extracted from those sal seeds, and those sal seeds, fatty oil is used, fatty acids are used as oil. Even mahua. Mahua is a plant which has a very sweet fragrance, and that fragrance is usually spread during the night time. So you say it is a mahua plant is somewhere nearby. Very, very sweet fragrance. It shall make you feel, it's so pleasant. It is so peaceful and so pleasant to smell the mahua. You don't get much mahua over here. So mahua was one of them. I think the light has gone. I do not know how long I'll be able to teach you. Anyway, they used many forest shrubs and herbs for medicinal purposes. So many forest shrubs and herbs were used for medicinal purposes and sold forest produce in the local markets. So in the nearby towns and villages, they used to go and they used to carry those things, and they used to just let me see whether it's my line which is gone or some. Just let me check for 1 second. 1 second. Just give me 1 minute time. Sorry. There is power cuts, tremendous power cuts everywhere, especially the places where MSCB is operating. It's a hopeless organization, MSCB. They used many forest shrubs and herbs for medicinal purposes and sold forest produce to the local markets. So they know the honey. They used to collect honey, and this mostly you can find that the Adivasis even today, if you go to interior of Maharashtra, near the jungle area, especially in Vidarbha and all, you'll find people are selling honeys, the tribal people. So like that in every state, the tribal people, the most important thing is that they will sell honey. So that they used to do. Okay. The local weavers and leather workers turned to cones when they needed supply of kusum and palash fools to color their clothes and leather. So, you know, these leather workers, they needed palash fool. Palash fool flowers are what? Palash flowers are actually red colored flowers, orangish red colored flowers. And if you see the palash flowers from a distance, when the jungle is, you know, bloomed with palash flowers from a distance, you will feel as if the jungle is lit with fire. Because that orangish red color actually gives a look from very far as if the forest is on fire. It is known as palash ban. So that palash and kusum and palash, these are the flowers which gives that orange, you know, colors, orange and reddish coloration. So for that, they used to depend on that. Because they, in those days, there were no dyes, you know, chemical dyes. From where did the forest people get their supplies of rice and other grains? At times, they exchanged good, getting whatever they needed, what they needed in return of their valuable forest produce. Suppose they give a few liters of honey. For that, they used to get some kilos of rice grains. And that rice grains, either they used to get raw, which they used to spread for agriculture, or they used to take it at home. Okay, at other times, they brought goods with small amounts of earnings they had. So whatever earnings they had, with that they bought some oil, edible oil, something, you know, some other goods, whatever goods are required. Some of them did odd jobs in the villages, carrying loads of building roads, building roads, while others labored in the fields of peasants and farmers. So, you know, they carried loads, you know, they became, you know, something sort of like the coolies. There were lots of people who became the coolies. And they actually became, you know, mazdoors. They became mazdoors. When supplies of forest produce, and some of them became farmers also. So they settled in the villages and they started working for the big landlords, all the landlords. When supplies of forest produce shrank, tribal people had to increasingly wander around in search of work as laborers. So they had to go to the nearest towns and cities in search of labor. Some of them became, in the nearby villages, they became, light has come, they became, you know, what you say, farmers. In my mama's house, where it is in Burdwan district. So in Bengal, in Burdwan district in Bengal, they had land. They still have lands and all, and agricultural land. All the people all the farmers who were all Santals. They were all Santals. I still remember some of the names, Tiru and Pachu, all these names were there. So these people, they were all from tribal race. They are all Santals. And they had been working for generations, they have been working in these villages. Today, their children have become doctors and engineers, and some of them have settled even outside India and all. It's a big success story. But actually, those people were the real, you know, they came to those places and they started farming in a very big way. They're very laborious people. They are much more laborious than you and me. Because these Santals and the tribal people, they live a very hard forest life. So right from the beginning, they are very, very laborious. And throughout the day, they can labor hard. They work very hard. And they used to do that. Are you getting it? What I'm telling? I'm trying to give you an example, a picture of what India was
Yes.
during those days.
Hmm.
Okay, when supplies of forest also, but many of them, like the Baigas of central India, were reluctant to do work for others. There were a few tribes who did not want to mix with the general people of India, like the Baigas of central India, which were mostly in Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh area. The Baigas saw themselves as people of the forest, who would only live on the produce of the forest. They said, we are pure jungli. We are proud to be called ourselves as jungli and Adivasis, and we will only live within the jungle area. We will not go. You see, so many, Gonds and these are the, Santal, Munda, Arao, Santal, so all this Bonda, Gonds, Maria, Baigas. So see, this is all Banjara, Ban Gujars, Rathwa, Bhil, Saharia, Malay ruler, Oya, Banjara, Gonds. So this entire area, you see, this Khasi, Meiti. So you can get the entire map of the tribes. This is a very important map. Market. This is a very important map. We might get questions. Which tribe belongs to which area? Please mark it. This is a very, very important map. Please study it properly. Okay. This might come in your exams as a question. But many of them, like the Baigas, were elected. The Baigas saw themselves as the people of the forest who could only live on the produce of the forest. It was below the dignity of a Baiga to become a laborer. They said, we cannot become laborer and go to the forest, to the village zamindar or the town, industrialist and become a laborer. That is okay. Okay, Khushi, I got it. So the Banjaras were also a tribe. There is a tribe. There is a surname among Banjaras in Rajasthan, and that surname is Meena, Meena, and you won't believe maximum number of IAS officers from Rajasthan are all Meenas. Now this Meena tribe developed, they got very good education, and most of their children, they became absorbed in different government offices. I knew one Meena who was a very senior GM, General Manager IT of Reserve Bank of India. He used to sit at Fort Office. So you see, they have developed over the years. Maybe 100 years back or 70 years back, their life was very different. But now, due to the social justice policy, the tribals have really done very well. Okay. The Baigas saw themselves as the okay, that is gone. So they did not want to become a laborer. Now, tribal groups often needed to buy and sell in order to be able to get goods that were not produced within the locality. So these Baigas, like Baigas, how could they manage? That is a big question, because the tribal groups often needed to buy and sell in order, that has to be there, at least a barter system, that I give you a liter of honey. Instead, in that case, you give me some salt, so that now these Adivasis were very fond of salt. Let me tell you this. These Adivasis, because they used to cook rice, and you won't believe, in places like Kalahandi district of Odisha and Kondamar district that I told you, they usually have very high blood pressure, because the tribals, because they only eat rice, water soaked rice, that is known as pokhala, which is known as panta or pokhala. That means the rice is soaked in water, because the heat is tremendous. So in that heat, the rice is actually kept overnight. In the night, they used to prepare the rice and used to soak it in the water, and used to keep them in earthen pots. In the morning, they used to take out those rice, and they used to have it with namak, that is with salt. So due to that, over the generation, their pressure increased, blood pressure, because salt give rise to BP. Tribal groups often need to buy and sell in order to be able to get goods that were not produced within the locality. Clothes, maybe oil, edible oil, all these things, spices. This led to their dependence on traders and moneylenders. So they started becoming trapped. Traders came around with things of sell and sold the goods at high prices. Suppose at salt was sold at 50 paisa in those days. Suppose a kilo of salt. They used to sell it at 75 paisa, a 25 paisa extra per kilo to these poor Adivasis. But the interest charged on the, so that is one. Secondly, moneylenders gave loans with which the tribals made their cash needs, adding to what they earned. Now the moneylenders, they gave loans, and as the development was happening, the tribals also wanted to have a lifestyle within the jungle, and to have a lifestyle in a society, you need to have money. So they used to get the money from the cash, ready-made cash. They used to get hand-ready cash. They used to get from these people, these moneylenders. Okay, but the interest charged on the loan was usually very high. Now, suppose the interest at which the loan was given, maybe 5% to the normal people, villagers and town people, but it was somewhere around 8% or 9% to this poor Adivasis, the tribals. So for the tribals, market and commerce often meant debt and poverty. So market and commerce was meant for poverty, meant for debt and poverty. So they had incurred lots of debt. बहुत ज़्यादा उधार हो गए उनके, और उनका जो है उनका जो इकोनॉमिक परिस्थिति है, उनके जो माली हालत थी, वो दिन पे दिन वो खराब होता गया. They therefore came to see the moneylender and trader as evil outsiders and curse of their misery. फिर उनको पता चला कि ये जो money lenders and traders, they are looting them, because some of them started getting a bit of education, so they started came to know got to know that all these people are there, started looting them. So they became a sort of potent enemy for them. They saw them as their enemy. Some herded animals. Many tribal groups lived by herding and rearing animals. Sheep, goats, buffaloes, cows, pigs, poultry, so different sort of goats. So they were pastorals who moved with their herds of cattle or sheep according to the seasons. When the grass in one place was exhausted, they moved to another area. So they became a sort of nomads. The Van Gujars of Punjab Hills and the Labadis of Andhra Pradesh were cattle herders. The Gaddis of Kulu were shepherds. Kulu is in Himachal Pradesh. And the Bakarwalas of Kashmir, that is Bakris, were reared goats. You will read more about them in your history book next year. So these were the different groups, according to their occupation, they were settled in different parts of the country, and they used to rear, the Kashmiri goats, which is very famous. It get the shawl, which is known as, starts with the name P. I'm forgetting. Pashmina shawl you get in Kashmir, which is very expensive. That is actually from the goat skin. Very, 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 very. Now, animal lovers, they are against Pashmina. Now, a time to hunt, a time to sow, a time to move to a new field. Have you ever noticed that people living in different types of societies do not share the same notion of work and time? The lives of shifting cultivators and hunters in different regions were regulated by a calendar and division of tasks for men and women. So it was rather seasonal. It was rather seasonal. Varian Elwin, a British anthropologist who lived among the Baigas and Khons of central India for many years in 1930s and 1940s, gives us a picture of what this calendar and division of tasks was like. So he was an anthropologist. Anthropologist is a person who studies about the tribes. So he stayed with the tribe for many, many years, and he knew their social structure and system, their traditions. He writes in Chait. Chait means the month of April, May, that time. In Chait, women went to clearings to cut stalks that were already ripped. Men cut large trees, so they used to cut the stalks that were already ripped. That is the harvest. Men cut large trees and go for the ritual hunt. So they used to the cutting of harvest was usually done by the ladies because that is a soft work. But cutting of large trees and hunting, this was taken by a very hard work. This was taken by the gents. The hunt began at full moon from the east. So when there was a full moon, on that day the hunting would start. Traps of bamboo were used for hunting. The women gathered fruits like sago, tamarind, and mushroom. Sago is what you know? Can anybody tell me what is sago?
Don't know, sir. What is sago?
Do you have this sabudana badi and sabudana bada and all these things in the
Yes, sir.
Yeah. That sabudana is actually derived from sago. It is known as sago palm. It is an extract from the sago palm. Okay. So that is also a jungle product. Okay. So they used to collect all these things. Baiga women only gathered roots of kanda in mahua seeds. Kanda is sort of the sweet potatoes. Of all, the Adivasis in central India, the Baigas were known as the best hunters. They are very good hunters. Even the Santals and Mundas were very good hunters. In Baisakh, but Baisakh is April. It is April. The firing of the forest took place. The people used to lit fires. The women gathered unburnt wood to burn. Men continued to hunt, but near the villages. In Jet means Jeshta, that is June. Sowing took place and hunting still went on. From Ashad to Bhadon, that is Ashad, Savan, Bhadon, rainy season. The men worked in the fields. That means sowing seeds and all, because the mud is usually soft and there is rainfall. In Kuar, the first fruits of beans, that means in autumn, were ripened, and in Kartik, Kukti became ripe. Kartik means November. In Kuar, the first fruits the beans were ripened in Kartik Kukti and became ripe. In Aghan, that means in December, late November, December, every crop was ready, and in Pus, that is January, that is known as Pus Sankrant or Makar Sankrant, winning took place. Pus was also the time for dances and marriages. It was a time, it was a winter month and celebrations. So they used to make all sorts of, rice items, and they used to celebrate. In Magh, shifts were made to new beavers, and old hunting gathering was the main sustenance activity. So in Magh, shifts were made to new beavers. That means they used to shift. That was the time for shifting to new places. And they survived on what they had gathered and they had stocked with them. The cycle described all these tribes, they belong to the ST category. First is SC, first is OBC. Among the reserved quota category, first is OBC. Then comes SC. Then the most concerned, the highest number of reservation is given for the STs, because ST is more backward than SC. SC is more backward than OBC. So other backward class is better improved. Scheduled caste is better improved than the STs. Scheduled caste means the Dalits. So actually they were villagers or living in towns. So at least they are much benefited economically and socially than the STs who used to live in jungle and who still live in jungle. They have nothing. No source of income, nothing. They are cut off from the civilized world. So reservation happens. They come under ST category. SC and ST. SC is scheduled caste. ST is scheduled tribes.
Sir, what is the difference between scheduled caste and Dalits?
There is no difference. There is no difference between a scheduled caste and a Dalit. We name it Dalit. Previously, it was known as Harijan. Then it came to be known as Dalit. Then it came to be known as Bahujan Samaj. Then it now, of course, in English, it is called scheduled caste for constitutional purpose. Scheduled tribe is the most cared people. That means they have the highest number of reservations. A Vanjara is a scheduled tribe. It's not a scheduled caste. So the benefits a Banjara will get is much more than the scheduled caste because being from a scheduled tribe. So that is there are many sort of things out there. Anyways, the cycle described above took in the first year. In the second year, there was more time for hunting as only a few crops had to be sown and harvested. But since there was enough food for men, they lived in bivouacs. So it took time, to cultivate a crop and to harvest it. Okay. It was only in the third year that the diet had to be supplemented with forest products. So there was a lean period in between. First year, second year, the third period was, had to be depend on the stock products because 1 year was totally converted in towards getting, the things. So I stop here. I'll continue my class in the next class. I'll prepare the MCQs for this also. Let me finish up the chapter. With each chapter, I'll finish up the MCQs and then I'll take a test. Remember, whenever I finish a chapter, I'll take a test. This thing I'm going to do now. So that we remain with the tide. We flow with the tide. Okay. See you by tomorrow. We have this class at the same time.
Sir?
Bye, sir. Have a good day.